Hello everybody, today I'm here back again with a poem called Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. Now Pablo Neruda, he was born in Chile, and moreover he also won a Nobel Prize in literature. Okay, so the kind of messages that we get to see in his writing is all about unity, brotherhood, about peace and all. In these lines, the poet, he intends to dissolve the boundaries of cultures by prohibiting them from speaking any language. So that's why he says, on the face of the earth. That means he's referring to all the nations of the earth. Let's not speak in any language, because language is a barrier to different communities. Okay, so that's why he stops them from speaking any language, and he asks them to be still for a while, not to move at all, because he wants people to let their thoughts flow free without any rush or hurry. Okay, so here when he talks about let's not move our arms, now arms has two meanings here. So firstly, it also means to indulge oneself in warfare, okay, or it also means our physical arms. That means not to do any kind of work, not to be involved in any kind of work. Now he says, it would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. So here he says that it would be a different feeling, something very exotic, a different kind of experience to see the world come to a halt, where everything stops and everyone comes together in quietness, in solitude, a sudden silence, okay, which a sudden stop to all the activities which the world has never ever seen so far. So now he is asking people, he's urging people to stop working or to cause doing any kinds of harms to the environment, okay, to stop our personal activities and unite in silence. So he states that silence is exotic, because this silence will only make us blissful, it will make us peaceful, okay, and something very strange, and will bring complete equilibrium. Now here he says, fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at it hurt hands. So now he uses imagery of the cold sea here, and he says fishermen who have been busy fishing, who's busy in the... Here fishermen represent all kinds of killers, all kinds of tyrants, okay. So the poet wants them to cease their work, to stop their work and realize that their mistake, because if they stop, then they would not put any harm to the whales. And then again he refers to the salt gatherer. Now this salt gatherer is the representative of the poor and the lower section of the society. So this also represents self-harm. We are so busy in our work, we hardly have any time to stop, to introspect, to think, and to observe. Because we are so much, focused on our work, that we lose track of everything, even our own lives. We just let ourselves be hurt. So therefore he says, if only this man gathering salt would stop for some time, then he would see how he has hurt himself. He would see his hurt hand. Now here, hurt hand is an alliteration. At the same time, sudden strangeness is also an alliteration. Now, cold sea here is an imagery. At the same time, it is the representation. So that means it is symbolism. It symbolizes the North Sea. Now next. Those who prepare war, green wars, wars with gases, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. Okay, so now he is referring to all the people who have been causing harm. The green war here means destruction of the environment. Again, wars with gas, it refers to the nuclear war, and wars with fire, it refers to the, bombs and guns. So these are all repetitions. So green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, this is called repetition. Here the poet condemns the people with the green wars, the biological weapons or the creators of pollution, and wars with fire, the atomic war, because they are only destroying the environment, destroying people, destroying everything that is there. And then he says, victory with no survivors would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers. So here he says, what is the use of fighting? Okay, when you become victorious without any survivors. So here the poet is mocking at the victory of those people who do get victory, but victory over destruction. Okay, so the poet here is asking them to leave the path of destruction and join the group of silence, because this silence would bring about peace and unity. And he urges them to put on clean clothes, meaning this kind of it symbolizes purity and serenity. Okay, and walk about with their brothers, and walk about with each other as brothers in unity. Okay, without fighting with each other, without having any jealousy, without harming each other. In the shade doing nothing. Now here shade is a metaphor, because just as we receive a lot of serenity, a lot of peace and tranquility standing under the shade of a tree, which gives us shelter from the heat, likewise, when we give up war, when we give up fighting, then we will also experience a sense of serenity. We will experience tranquility and serenity. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. Now here, the poet is trying to tell us that when he talks about being silent, when he talks about remaining quiet, he does not want us to be confused with total inactivity, with, laziness. Okay, so here he emphasizes on his clear intentions about being still, which does not mean inactivity. Okay, total inactivity would mean not doing anything, just staying there, being lazy. But the poet wants the readers to be still, but at the same time think, introspect. The poet says that his message is about life. He does not want people to think about death, because thinking about the death brings negativity. So he wants people to be very brave, to be positive, because life is what it is about. This is life. Whatever comes, it's a part of life. Death is also a part of life. So he does not want anybody to think about death, about negativity. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So here he talks about people who are single-minded, means very selfish. Okay, they always are very selfish because, you know, they only think about their own achievement. They only want to get ahead of the others by achieving success. Okay, so that's why if we did not have to be so selfish about our own successes, okay, about keeping our lives moving, means keeping success, becoming successful in life, and for once could do nothing, just leaving everything and staying without anything, without talking, without any action, then perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves. So maybe then we would achieve peace and unity. Okay, and maybe this silence might destroy the sadness that we have. And what is the sadness that he's talking about? The sadness of never understanding ourselves, never understanding others, and thus as a consequence we often get into fights, we often threaten each other, we often involve ourselves in war. So what he basically wants to say is like, we human beings are very single-minded, we are very selfish, okay, and we are only busy in achieving our own goals, completing personal responsibilities. So we never stop a while to introspect, to evaluate ourselves, to understand ourselves. So since we do not understand ourselves, then we cannot come out of these desires and achievement. So if we could just stop for a while, okay, we would be able to understand the real purpose of our lives. We would be able to understand ourselves. We would be able to understand the others, and rather, we would be free of everything, and we would be one with each other. Instead of fighting and threatening each other, we would be peaceful, we would be united. Now we come to the last of the paragraph. He says, perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now here the poet has personified the earth as a teacher. Okay, so he kind of uses earth as a symbolism. Now the earth looks dead. Now here he's referring to the winter season. Winter season, everything seems dead. The leaves have fallen down, the trees are barren, there are no flowers, no fruits. But actually what is happening, these very seeds which fall down, they have been preserved in the soil so that when springtime comes, it springs back to life. So that's what it means, as when everything seems dead, because winter time everything looks dead and later proves to be alive. But then the same seed, the same fruit which has fallen down to the earth actually has been preserved, and then it comes back to life in the springtime. And therefore we should learn the same thing. Okay, our life will also bear certain meaning when we walk on the right path, when we introspect in silence. Then he says, now I'll count out to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. So now he comes to a conclusion out here. Okay, the poet leaves us now at this particular time to introspect, as if he himself has gone through the same thing. Okay, in the beginning he has already started with this action of keeping quiet, right? Just hold on. So this is how he starts. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. So this is where he begins his action. Okay, he suggests us to be quiet. That he suggests that he's going to count to 12, and then we remain quiet for various reasons. And now when he has come to the end of the poem, he leaves us. He says, now I'll count up to 12. You keep quiet and I will go. So the poet leaves us here to introspect. All right. So we've come to the end. Thank you very much.